Hello and welcome to Felixstowe Television. Now today we've got the first of a new programme for you to watch. We're going to call it Clarion Call. Now we have with us today Mike Nimmy. You know Mike. Mike is the font of all information. Thank you so much.
If it were but true. Yes.
It is true. Mike Nimmy is our watchdog. He attends most committee meetings that affect Felixstowe Peninsula, anything to do with health, to do with housing, and actually almost anything else that you deal with in Felixstowe.
I think the health I was sort of inveigled into becoming a part and having an interest in about 10 or 11 years ago by a gentleman called Peter Mellor and Roy Gray, and I've just carried on really. It's one of those things that you sort of, it's being curious, and apparently there's no point in getting older if you don't stay curious. That's what they say anyway. So,
but what a watchdog when you know so much, because how many other people go to the amount of committees that you do to see what's happening? Now, I have to tell you, can I say this?
I don't know, Lovey. It depends what you're going to say. I mean, I've got no idea. This is totally unscripted. And this is sort of an emergency clarion call, because some of you may be unaware that you've got a very limited time to make your views known on what will be happening in the Felixstowe Peninsula over the next 17 years.
This is what I was going to say, because I didn't know, but apparently every 15 years there's a committee, a group that come along to decide the usage of the area around Felixstowe Peninsula, the ground, what you can use it for. Now, I didn't know anything about this.
Well, it was introduced in 1947 as a much more formal process, and fundamentally, I suppose, it was following on with good practices in Australia, New Zealand, Canada, the US of A, that to give guaranteed security that in the future you'll have sufficient land for employment, for housing, for service provision of, say, education, health, all of those things. You do need an area plan. So a thing was developed called the local plan, and that's gone through several rejiggings. Normally when you get a new government, they've got to tinker with it and play with it. So what we're now going through has been actually running, I think, probably since about 2001, 2002. So we're nearly 10 years in and we're not finished. It's astounding, really. It's had so many stop-starts, changes. But what is important for our viewer is the fact that this coming Tuesday, or if you're looking at it, it's already been and gone, on Tuesday the 3rd of February, 5:30 to I think 8:30, in Felixstowe Town Hall, you have the opportunity of looking at the Felixstowe Peninsula. New name for it is the Area Action Plan.
Is that what this is? An
That's
area
what this
action plan?
That's it.
But there's supposed to be consultation, isn't there, with all the residents in the Felixstowe Peninsula?
I mean, the reason we put this together in a hurry was that I was able to pop into Walton Community Hall, where they were doing the second one on the peninsula. They'd done one at Felixstowe St Martin earlier in the week, and I believe they had something like 20 people. That was top, bottom and it, you know. How many went into Walton tomorrow, I don't know, because I went on to the hospital from there. But the key thing is this, there is a bit within it, and this is the document, or one of the documents, because the key thing for us is the Area Action Plan, and the consultation period runs through until the 27th of February 2015.
Can you please explain, what does an area action plan mean? Well, what does that mean to us?
Let's just read for you the opening paragraph, which actually sort of gives you some idea of what it's doing. And well, this is the concept that the planning department has on what this should be doing. Now, you may agree or disagree, and if you disagree, then you need to make that view strongly to the planning department, so because this is a a document to consult on, so it has the ability to be rewritten, added to, subtract, you know, so it should be a proper consultation.
Can I ask the question? Does that mean that as a resident of Felixstowe,
yes,
we can make suggestions, or
absolutely.
we can? So all these consultations weren't just to listen; they were.
They should be interactive.
They were they should
supposedly.
be, or were they?
Well, the point is that. Unfortunately, they kicked the consultation off on the 15th of December. Now, there's quite a big event that happens on the 25th of December, isn't there? So most people are actually well into Christmas, then they're well into New Year. So really, I only became aware of it because I attended a planning meeting at the town hall, and they said this document should be in the library. So I went there, and needless to say, it wasn't. You know, so I thought, well, not again. And you may be aware they've been knocking the library about because they're redoing the counters. So this was sort of on a shelf with a lot of other stuff. Unless you knew it was there, it wouldn't have jumped out at you and said, so this is an important document that will determine, and this is what it says.
Right.
The Felixstowe Peninsula Area Action Plan will provide the framework within which the communities, businesses and economies of the Felixstowe Peninsula can grow and develop over the next 10 to 15 years. Quite a big statement that, isn't it?
Yeah.
Really. And what do they mean by communities, businesses and the economies? It's sort of a bit, you know, this really should end up providing a better quality of life to the existing residents and any new residents. And what should be one of the big drivers within this is the fact that as a nation we've singularly failed on providing either the amount of housing that's needing, or equally important, the right type of housing that's needed. So the big driver is the lack of housing, really. So
can I break this down then? So
yep.
They come and look at the land that's on the peninsula.
Indeed they do, yeah.
And they say where you can put housing?
No, they don't do it as sensible as that, really. What they say is anybody who lives in the Felixstowe Peninsula area, if you've got any land at all that you'd like to consider that could be moved from what it may now be doing and could become housing, we would like you to offer it up. And that's what they did. And they did that back, I think, in 2013.
But if we haven't heard about it, how do people that have land?
Well, because people who have an interest in this type of area, and it's sadly not the community because they're not really kept informed, will be the house agents, the developers, the farmers, all of them. You can guarantee they're well aware because it's in their financial interest to be connected. So if you look in this document, given the, and it's all on the website, and I do have a particular issue with this, is that for those of you who don't use website, though you'll be watching this on it, this information is available there. But what you need to know is it's there and what's it going to consist of.
What can we put up on the screen for our viewers to see?
That would be
We've
useful.
Got there's a leaflet, have your say, help shape your area. Now we're going to put that up on the screen so that you can see the information on there. We are coming from a late time, aren't we?
We are. I mean, we're already halfway through, aren't we? Kicked off on the slightly less than halfway through.
So
you know.
So as a resident myself, I'd be interested to know where they're going to build a lot of houses.
Or what type.
Or what type? Yeah. Is it going to suit older people? Is it for families? What's the infrastructure? Because you can build a big plot of land with houses on it, but where are the shops? How will the schools cope? Where's your hospital? Yeah. Where's the buses?
Yeah, I mean, a concern I have, and I've expressed it in the past, is that what we've had in our nation since sort of the 40s is that less and less people are living in more and more housing. That might be hard to believe, but
less people are living in more and more housing.
Yeah. So when you were born and I were born, the probability is that the normal house had mother, father, 2.4 children or similar.
Right.
So you probably had an average occupancy of houses were about 4.5. Right. That figure has dropped down to 2.4. So we're making less.
How?
Because basically, I suppose, we're wealthier. You've got the situation that the whole social structure is looking at. If we look at health, say, towards end of life, we say, we will bend every sinew to keep you in your family home. Now, in a case, that may be the surviving spouse, one person, is actually rattling around in a 4-bedroom house.
Right.
The family home.
Yes.
So therefore, the occupancy of that house is now dropped to 1, having been whatever it was before.
Right.
So that's an area how you have, if you like, less occupancy than we previously had. And it does say this in this document.
But didn't that always happen?
Well, not really. I mean, if you go back to, I suppose it's the fact that there is more wealth, more people have bought housing, but we've been seriously not using the housing stock we have in the best way. For instance, down the road from where I live, there was a complex developed called Comfort House that was a sheltered complex.
Right.
It had within it sort of a bed sit, a flat, depending on what your particular needs were, and the people there were supported. Now, a number of the people that moved there because they wanted sheltered housing and the support of a warden, when they moved, they freed up a 3-bedroom family home.
Are you talking about older people?
Yeah.
Yes.
But they had somewhere to
80s.
go, which they thought was better in their own long-term interest to move towards. Well, sadly, this particular complex has just been demolished.
Oh, has it?
We lost, I think it was over 30 dwellings we've had, and they've been replaced with 14.
Does that 14 or 40?
No, 14. So
14
we actually,
from
not only
30
did we
to
lose the
14?
yeah, no, don't ask me how Flagship thought that was a good idea, but that's what they've done.
Oh, for older people?
Yeah, so the support structure that was there is no longer there. But what it does mean is that I think there are something like 24 or so units within the sheltered housing complex, and then there were a number of other bungalows that were adjacent to it. What it means is that that number of family homes are no longer being freed up.
Can I
So
ask a question?
you know, so it's a nonsense where we're going. I mean, the government have tried this sort of bedroom tax to try to get more efficient usage of public housing.
Yes.
But to do that, you needed to have built the appropriate number of 1 or 2 bedrooms that people need in the area that you're saying you've got to move. Well, where are they going to move to?
Can I ask a question?
Yes, of course you can.
The 30 units that were taken down, were they sort of council owned?
Yes.
Public?
Yeah. It was.
Were the new ones?
No,
private?
they were built in the mid-60s. There had been very little investment made within them from the point of view of when they were passed on to a housing association. And it was, again, sort of very short-termism government policy that changes virtually will-o'-the-wisp, you know, sort of, we've got to have stability, and there wasn't, because the original reason for redeveloping it was to have gone to a higher level of sheltered housing, but they didn't get the money, so they ended up trying to do something, anything, because they'd already had it lying empty for, what, 2 years or more.
Oh, right.
So, you know, you shouldn't be clearing things out or knocking it down until you've actually got the funding in place, should you? Because you end up with derelict stuff and that's what it is.
But needy housing.
So, yeah, so to avoid that, what we really need to know, and it's a part of this, the Planning Authority carries out a housing needs survey within each sort of housing area.
Is this within this 15?
Well, it should be. I mean, there's reference. I was looking for the reference. I haven't gone through the whole thing yet.
Makes
but
sense they do it about the same time, so they know what they need every 15 years.
That's the point. But what is unfortunate, though they've done housing needs surveys forever, it doesn't seem to have any teeth within the delivery of housing.
So it has no
It's got no teeth.
no.
You know, you'd have thought that we are well aware now, aren't we, that in social housing we need a larger number of 1 and 2 units for people to be able to downsize to, and free up bigger units for growing families. But you've got a real big logjam, you know, and it's just not been developed. And if you have a look of the over provision, It may well be in the 4-bedroom double garage, which, as we know, a lot of developers want to do because they make more profit. But they use a huge amount of land.
But that's not council or housing
No, but it's the old
association.
ethos of housing your complete community, whether it's private sector or private
So is this
or charity.
15-year plan then is public, council sector as well as private?
It is the whole land use within the area you live.
So you've got the council fighting with the private. Do they fight with each other? I mean, the private housing.
I mean, a private company has an obligation to its shareholders to maximise its profit.
Yes.
And that's its only driver. So
Yes.
things like this actually put obligations upon those who are looking to maximise their profit, that they have obligations as well as opportunities. So it's the obligations that have been very, very under-delivered in our district over the last several years.
Does that
Mind
mean...
you, that's becoming national now. It's
So there's not so many private... there's not so many council housing...
Well, our council housing was one of the first to be transferred to housing associations.
Housing... But I thought countrywide, any new private development had to have some housing association.
Yeah. Well, it's supposed to have, but the developers have now found out how to avoid that obligation.
No.
Oh yeah, they've been avoiding it very effectively for some long time. I mean, the process and probably this should have some of that incorporated in it. Normally, when you wanted to do a development, you go in front of a planning committee. You say, "This is what we're looking to do. We'll comply with all the things that you require." Because what they want to do is get the consent. Yes, having got the consent, they seem to go away for 4, 6, 8 months, and then they come back with a whole new financial rejigging of what they're looking to do, and they say they can, if they are having to provide the benefit to the community, the whole development is no longer viable. So can we not do the community benefit? And sadly, particularly latterly, that's been allowed more and more and more, because we are, as a nation, desperately in need of housing, but nobody has come up with a scheme whereby the community that it's going to come into are welcoming of it. Most people seem to resent housing being built about them or with them or on them, and particularly if you're going to be putting it on prime agricultural land. I mean, it sounds a madness to me that you should be doing that. Yeah. But the obligation really, first and foremost, is that you use brownfield land to build on first. The problem is the developer views that as possibly a slightly more expensive route to deliver a development. So if they can get their hands on a greenfield site, then they're cock-a-hoop, because it's, you know, starting from fresh.
So am I hearing you saying, possibly, that all of this is to the advantage, everything is geared towards the private housing builders?
Well, yes, because the amount of social housing that's been coming out of it in our district has been less and less and less, because those who are looking to develop have been able to duck the community benefits that's supposed to accrue from that. I mean, the concept, and this was kicked off in the 40s when they brought in planning, was assuming you're moving the status of land from agricultural or industrial to residential, then in reality you suddenly, in our area for instance, you're looking at probably the value of an acre of agricultural land might be as high as £15,000, but if you can get planning consent to it, depending on its position, it may be worth as much as £2.2 million. So what the community said way back in the 40s was that in the event that you have that rise in land value, some of that appreciation should come back to do the community in which this is going to be some benefit. And equally, if those folks are coming in, you're going to need to provide education, roads, social, sports, and because we don't really seem to have a public housing policy that works anymore, that's also added to it. And the real thing, I think, that's been missed in our system is the fact that when the transfer takes place of the, say, the farmland or the industrial brownfield land to the developer, that normally goes through a third party. So when the developer presents his figures, he shows you what he bought it at, not what it was when it was given planning consent. So I would have thought it's not beyond the wit of man to know at the point of application for this site, what's being paid for that site. So what you get is the big profit that's made at the front is whipped out of it, but it becomes a massive cost, which makes everything else undeliverable.
Oh my
but that's not that. It depends. You may have a different view, but the point is, and this is the important point, is that this coming Tuesday at the town hall, you have an opportunity to see the documents and talk to the principal planning officers and no doubt some councillors as to, you know, what are the good bits in this, how will it impact you. They show you the maps of where development may be going.
Right.
These are the ones that they've actually agreed, and it will undoubtedly upset a fair number of people. Those are actually the sites whereby they are currently saying the planning department would be supportive of development within our town.
I wonder if we can
so
copy
if you can,
that onto
if
the
you look at all of those
screen
pink areas, you can see where they're looking for housing to go.
So, in a consultation like this, would that mean that I could go along and say, I don't approve of that?
Yes, you could.
Would I have that ability?
You can do whatever you want. You know, you can.
Would it be taken, are they supposed to take that into
account?
account?
It would be a part of, and there is a community engagement policy which should be saying, this is what we're looking to do. Now, if you were to go along and say, well, I don't want that development there because it would devalue the value of my house, etc., etc.
Yes.
That is not a valid objection to any planning application. You're not entitled to a view. You're not entitled to, I mean, all of those things. It would need to be a planning bit. It would have to be, it would have a detrimental impact upon the environment in which you live. It would push up traffic. It would make more noise. All of those sort of
infrastructure.
Yeah, lack of infrastructure to support it. You know, sort of pressure that would be brought on health facilities, education facilities. One thing that we're not moving toward is the fact that we keep saying we have a population where the segment of the over 65s is getting greater, which I would have thought those of us who may be in that realms are very grateful for when we consider our grandparents and grandparents. Very few of those got through to the ages that we're going to get through. And thanks to modern medicine, many, many more of us will be doing that. But we're not sort of getting that structure factored into forward planning, are we? I mean, we were saying, you've been looking for accommodation in town, you've moved again, but the choice you had was pretty limited, really. You know, assuming you were somebody who had difficulty in getting around, which often comes with age, then really you want a one-level type apartment that is fit for, you know, for you to stay in. You don't want to be moving somewhere to be moving then somewhere else, do you? And we're not really approaching that with anything like the vigour we need to.
There's a lot of private development in Felixstowe for retired accommodation,
which often becomes sort of a gated type community, which I think is sad, because
and very
that's
expensive
what you used to think of in the good old days was that you'd be able to sell your family home at a decent price, but you would then be downsizing, and the assumption was you would have a bit of a nest egg you could take with you to help you into your, you know, in your final home. The reality is that that which is available is overpriced for what it is. So the amount that you're liable to get in your nest egg is reduced. So a lot of people say, well, why am I going to go through all that pain and suffering and when I'm going to get very little out of it? So therefore they stay in the family home. Which progressively, I mean, I've moved my sister out of a very large bungalow that she had, and progressively she became more and more worried about maintaining it, doing it, all of those things. She was fortunate, she's fortunate, unfortunate, but she's in a purpose-built retirement complex, which was built to a whole life standard, and that's a whole different debate. But that means it's got to meet a building specification that means you could be born there and die there. So the doors are wide. It can take a wheelchair and turn around. You can get into the toilet.
So whatever happens
this design spec has existed for years.
Yeah.
Very few local planning authorities require any of those to be built anywhere. And when you consider Aldeburgh has the highest proportion of over 65
Does
in the country,
really?
And we're not far behind, we really should be a flagship leader on this, shouldn't we? So there we go, folks. I mean, it's
so this is all you're talking about housing associations building.
Yeah, well, actually, I mean, some private developers do this. That where my sister now lives was actually funded and led by a charity in conjunction with Plymouth City Council, and they paid just over 9 million to develop this particular series of complexes. So unless you've got a charity or somebody with a longer view than, you know, just a quick profit in and out, then too little of this is developed or delivered.
So to sort of sum it all up, if you've got any concerns,
get down to the town hall. Get down to the town hall on Tuesday. Failing that, we'll try to get some coverage of it so we can put it on as a standalone, so you will be able to see through this wonderful medium of community television what you would have seen if you'd been able to get there. But we're looking for consent for that from Suffolk Coastal District Council, because they, after all, are the responsible body for ensuring that there is a fully meaningful consultation with your good selves.
And I know it's late, but if viewers take an interest, look at what's on offer, and have some comments to make, can they still do that?
Oh, right up until the 27th of February. I mean, I'm minded to ask whether it's practical to extend the consultation period on the basis that it kicked off running into Christmas and New Year. They've had a major redevelopment going on in the library, so it really hasn't had very much prominence. The real shocker to me is I happened to go to Woodbridge council offices last Friday, and I happened to see that they were coming to our town. I hadn't seen that before. So I didn't know. I haven't seen it in the local press. It may have been there, I may have missed it. But a problem we're having, aren't we, with our local newspapers is apparently less and less people are buying them. So therefore that as a medium is reaching less people. And the old, as we were saying a little while back, the old village gossip, handy info, it doesn't happen quite as much and as readily as it did. So there you are, folks. But information's available at the library. It's certainly available on that. And we'll put up the issues and options consultation, which is a consultation on, and you'll love this, site allocations and area-specific policies development plan document, and equally important for us, probably more so, is the Felixstowe Peninsula Area Action Plan. Have some thoughts and get your comments in before the consultation closes.
Fantastic. Now, do you feel that this Clarion Call programme, that we hopefully, as we develop it, we might be able to get some news earlier?
Well, yes, that's
to let you know what's going on.
Yeah, that's what we'll need to do. I mean, I believe we're certainly, we seem to live in an age of a Victorian Edwardian requirement that all the planning authority needs to do is to put a 2-inch square notice in your local paper, and they've done their duty with regards to engagement to their community.
So we're going to try,
because the legal requirements are well, we're in a very difficult age, aren't we? We're sort of analog, digital. Our younger folk are all over Facebook and the rest of it. Some of us don't go there at all. And the older the population that you're trying to reach, the less probably of them that will all be engaged in digital. The information may come to them via their grandchildren or their children.
But we'll try and put it out here so that you can see what's coming up.
So this document would help. But equally, I noticed
going on the screen.
It is. A comment I'd like to make on this is the fact that though there's email addresses, there isn't a single telephone number. So somebody who would like to ring up and say, can you just whatever, it's not instantly within the actual advisory document.
Do you think that was an accident?
Well, I'm afraid local government, regional and national government, it's extraordinarily cheap to do it on the internet and digitally than it is too. So if you put a telephone number there, they'd need to have somebody to be available to answer it.
Right.
And what they're doing really is reducing staff. So whether you'd instantly get to the body, you might need to. So they tell us that they're keeping frontline service support at, you can believe or otherwise.
Right.
We wouldn't dare comment.
No, I think
no, we wouldn't.
No. But fabulous.
There we are. All right, my
That's
flower,
really
that was
helpful.
grand.
Thank you so much.
And we'll see. But if you as a viewer have got any areas specifically impacting upon you, be it, it doesn't even matter what it is. It could be sport, it could be lack of recreational activity along our seafront, it could be the hours that our community hospital works, how the GPs could actually perhaps be able to do a better job. Just contact Felixstowe TV and we'll see what we can do.
Yes.
Yeah.
We've got Mike Nimmy on the case, and I think
others.
that's brilliant.
And we hope others.
I'm sure that we'll build.
Yeah.
Yes. So I really hope you found this interesting, and thank you so much for watching. And take a note of what's going on, and if you've got any comments, we'll put names up at the end that and contact details. And is it 3rd of Feb?
Felixstowe Town Hall. It kicks off at 5:30. I'm not sure what time it finishes, but we'll find that out. I would have thought if it must run until about 8. I would have thought.
Wouldn't it be wonderful to have more than 20 people there?
Well, yeah, that was
just so that they know that Felixstowe does care, and I know Felixstowe does care because Felixstowe's a wonderful place. You didn't know about it, now you do. But thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you at our next Clarion Call programme. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.